figured I was trying to buy.
Right, you're good.
I
I have no idea. You need to gavel.
Need a microphone.
You need to gavel.
All
We're gonna go and get started.
right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. This is the Landmarks Committee of Community Board 5. My name is Mark Richburg and I serve as the chair of the Landmarks Committee. And we have a stacked agenda tonight, and I also just want to acknowledge and thank everyone for being here with the holidays around the corner. I really appreciate it. But we do have a quorum, and it's hopefully going to be not a very long meeting, even though we have 5 agenda items. So we'll go as quickly as we can here. Just as a quick reminder to members of the committee that in compliance with the open meetings law, if anyone is participating virtually, they're required to have their cameras on. And also just as a reminder about the format of our meetings, the procedures as follows. So each applicant will give a hopefully quick presentation. And then from there, we'll move to questions from members of the committee. And then once members of the committee have a opportunity to ask their questions and get answers to them, then we'll open it up to the floor. Open up the floor to members of the public who will then have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments. And then from there, we will go to business session, in which case only members of the committee are allowed to discuss the matter. And then from there, we will take a vote, and then that vote then becomes is embodied in the resolution, which is then put forth before the full board at our next full board meeting. Then the board, the entire board votes, and then it becomes the official position of Community Board 5, and is forwarded to LPC and then the relevant agencies and elected officials. So given that we have so many items on the agenda, I think we'll just get started. Our first application is from 21 West 16th Street, and this is an application to replace the windows in the front and back of the Brown Shelter. The applicant present.
Yes, hi, my name is Rafael Cervantes. I'm presenting for Urban Pioneering Architecture, and I'll be presenting 21 West 16th Street. Can everyone hear me okay?
Not great.
Is this a little better?
Hold on. Oh, there she is.
We make that louder.
No, you have to speak up.
Hello, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Not loud, but
It's not loud.
I can try. Let me.
It's on his end, not on our end.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Do you want
I'm
to
trying
try
to lean in as far as possible.
separately?
Is that better? Is that better?
Could be marginal.
Can we just raise the volume on the TV?
Given how packed the agenda is, let's get more to
is that
the next
max?
meeting.
Hello?
Maybe struggling
Let me
here.
actually.
Online, I'm able to hear okay.
Oh, that's a little
That's
better.
better.
When Neil was
So-
speaking.
Oh, that's
So if you're able to hear me.
It's on
That-
his end.
That was
We can-
someone else speaking. So are you able to hear me now?
okay.
Just barely.
I'm the speak for a second, Rafael. I'm Jim Hill, principal of Urban Pioneering. I can help now if it helps at all. I can probably, guide you through it, or at least kind of repeat what he's saying.
Could you stand in the front?
Sure. Rafael, you're gonna help out a little bit.
Okay.
if I can.
All right. So, all right, so I'll try to present and we'll see how that works out.
Sure.
Okay, so again, I'm presenting 21 West 16th Street. This is for the replacement of the front facade windows. There's 9 windows and 1 door. It's located on the north side of West 16th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. And here are the existing, the tax photos. You can see that the original windows were, the top floor windows were 6/6 double hung windows. They were wood, painted white. The first floor windows were French casements with a fixed transom, a divided transom. And then the basement window and door are not clear here. I'm actually going to flip to the existing condition, but we believe that what is currently installed is not original, but still considered, could still be considered historic. And they are steel and glass window, casement window on the left, and on the right, French doors. I'm going to dive right into the close-up views of the existing windows and the proposed. So here's the existing French casement at the basement level. It's a steel and glass window as noted, and we are proposing to replace it with a 6/6 double hung window to match the windows above on the top 2 floors. There is some precedence for this being original in that the steel and glass window is installed in what looks to be the original wood frame double hung, and the neighbors on either side both have double hung windows installed at the basement level. Going to the opening next to that window at the basement level is French doors, again steel and glass, and we are looking to replace it with an aluminum clad French door to match the doors above on the first floor. These are the details. Obviously, you can see that the existing steel and glass is a much thinner detail compared to what we are proposing as a modern door. So here are the doors on the first floor. They're actually, I should say, the current are French casements with a transom. We are looking to replace it with a French door and transom, but similar in style, dividing it in the same amount of lights, both the transom and the doors. Again, when going into the details, you will see that the details are a little bit, they're wider. So you can see at the meeting here, the new one is 7 1/8. The original is about 5 inches. Same thing with the meeting between the doors. The original at the French casement is 3 1/2, and we're looking at more of a 6 1/8 inch new door jamb. The upper floor windows, we're looking to replace them in kind, essentially replace them with 6/6 double hung windows. This is both at the second and third floor windows. The different, I should note that the difference is going to be that we're proposing an aluminum clad product, black in color. And looking at those details, I'm going to point out here, we have a very typical brick mold, which we were able to find an aluminum clad product to match that same profile. Here at these windows, there's not much of a difference as it's a very standard double hung window. So I hope I kept that nice and short. I'm going to go back to the elevation for any questions, but the reason why this has come up with landmarks and it has to be presented to commissioners is we're switching from painted wood, white in color, to the black aluminum clad, as well as the proposal of the changes at the basement level by changing from the French casement to a double hung. But that is, yeah, that is 21 West 16th Street. Replacement.
All right, thank you very much. So going to members of the committee, does anyone have any questions? Tony?
Can we recap the materials? The top floors, the current materials, top floors are wood, very low floors are steel. What's the parlor level?
Wood, painted wood white,
They're also wood, and you're proposing all of them go to aluminum, correct?
yes.
Was there any consideration of going to wood, or that was never on the table?
Correct. We were looking for a more durable product. Less maintenance.
A technical question on the windows. Are the proposed aluminum clad windows more energy efficient? For example, do they have insulated glass versus the current single plate glass?
Yes. So they're double pane insulated compared to the single pane original windows.
What is the section of the muntin and mullions of the wood compared to the aluminum clad?
So at the first floor, the muttons. So we're looking at about very close, an 1/8 difference. So you can see that here. It's the mutton here versus the mutton here.
Can you zoom in, Raphael, on the mutton detail?
Existing is 1 inch, the proposed is 7/8 inch.
Thank you. Oh, never mind, we got it.
So that's the proposed.
Any other?
Quick one. Given that, this proposal was meant to address like the durability, I'm just curious, like, what do you anticipate the life expectancy of these windows and these alterations to be?
Oh, I wouldn't want to. I don't know the exact years I would put on it. Probably, I mean, the maintenance. I'll say the yearly maintenance of wood, of the upkeep of wood versus aluminum clad is none. And then longevity, you're probably looking at, I would think, 20 years.
Probably estimate more. I mean, it's aluminum clad wood product. So at heart, it's a wood window, which is aluminum cladding on the outside. The outside, it is wood, but with aluminum cladding on the outside. So it functions exactly like the wood ones.
It appears one of the main visible differences is going to be going from white to black. It looks like your neighbor also has black windows. Do you have any historic context of what may have been original?
No,
Is
we
that
do. We
preference
do
of
believe the original is white.
Did this building come to us about 5 years ago, the same building on 16th Street? I don't remember which one of that row came to us, but was this one of them? You guys,
Not that
You
we're
know?
aware of, no, not us.
Sorry, one more. Just wondering if the 3 window air conditioning units will be omitted permanently as part of the window replacement, or will you still have air conditioning through the windows?
They'll probably still have air conditioning through the windows, but they are removable. They're only temporary. They're only needed for the summertime.
that's winter, no breeze on that shirt.
Okay. So I think we'll open it up now to members of the public. Is there anyone? Okay. So then, since there are none, we'll go to business session here. As a reminder, this is only for members of the committee. So what are people thinking about this one?
I think this is a waste of our time and I'm gonna vote to approve.
So I don't think it's a waste of our time. I have a lot of problems with the fact that they're getting rid of original wood windows. They're changing the color, even the steel ones that aren't original. Steel was often used a long time ago, maybe a little more recent than the wood ones. And as the gentleman said, still considered historic. The fact that they're removing all the original material and they're changing what was probably the original color, to me is a major problem. Material is one of the biggest things we focus on when we see these replacement things, especially with windows. Aluminum's cheaper to go with, and it's gonna be about 20 years, and they're gonna do it again.
Any other thoughts? How do people feel about the material?
Tony is pretty much the lead on stuff like this. His breadth of knowledge on this is, I've been around a long time, is very deep, so my tendency is to say, yeah, I would object.
Feel the same way as Peter. I mean, you'll never, in terms of the dimensional differences, going from single pane to double pane, there's always going to be differences that I'm a little less concerned about. I think it's a shame that, especially in a building where you can actually get close up to the windows, that the material is being changed. I tend to be a little less orthodox when it's like way up in a place where nobody can get close to it, but here, you know, you'll be able to tell the difference actually, because of the scale of the building.
Isn't the materials the same as the building next door? Did we just say that?
No, the color.
The color's different.
No, the color is different. The color on one
And so the
side
color's
is
different
white.
from when?
You need to address the chair.
I'd like to understand the differences of the color.
Well, I mean, it sounds like the one next door is a different color.
Okay, so we should deny this alteration because the color is different.
No,
Because it's a landmark building and they're changing the color from the original color.
and they're making.
It's more than the color though, it's also the
metal.
materials.
The metal can't be changed. The metal will be black for its entire life. You can't paint it, it will stay on it. As opposed to the white, which is paint, which was the original intent in the neighborhood.
I live on this block and I don't see any issue with this, so I will vote to approve.
People-
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. I came in late. I just wasn't sure what he was voting and
Yeah.
we were still talking about it.
Also as someone who frequents this block, I think that I guess like a couple things that come to mind for me are just kind of like general maintenance and upkeep, like is the building owner trying to like keep the building and like the block in a state that is like somewhat that is like in good quality, and how many barriers do we as a community board and as a city want to put up to people doing that with the buildings that they own that are in landmark districts? I think that the change to the material and the change to the color doesn't depart from the historical fabric and like general feel of the block enough for me to put up that barrier to just making it in general more difficult for people who own these beautiful buildings that are hard to maintain in our city. It doesn't raise to the level of me being willing to say like I would not approve this particular change. So I'd be in favor of approving. I agree with that.
Likewise. So our role here is to focus on the fabric. The wood, the materials themselves, they are, in my opinion, a major part of this application. This is some of the earliest examples of what New York was, right? Especially in this neighborhood, right? Getting it further into Flatiron, it's much more of a pre-war loft kind of a neighborhood. These still remain, especially the block is absolutely spectacular. Historically, the federal style homes would have been all white trim originally. The color changing, I mean, that's one thing. The material changing is another. It's a small building. Living in a landmark building it involves upkeep, and there's a reason that this block in particular still looks so great. It is landmarked, and those owners are required to upkeep their buildings to a certain standard. And I think we should uphold those standards.
Mhm. I do know, like, from a precedent standpoint, we do take materials very seriously, and the replacement of them is always something that's our jurisdiction here, so it's something that we take into consideration.
Can I pose a question to some of those who are leaning toward opposing this?
It would be to me, but yeah.
Okay. I'm curious if we can investigate what might be some type of change or modification to this plan that might be amenable and from a material standpoint, if there is such a possibility.
Well, I feel like we need to rule on the application that's presented. And there could be a denial unless situation in which
Sure.
we would recommend certain changes, but I mean, I think the two options here are wood or aluminum clad materials. And sounds like the owner is pushing for one
Yeah,
material over the other.
I don't think this is a deny unless. It's too basic and it's too simple, really.
You mentioned a couple of sessions ago what the actual provisions of landmarks law state, right?
I'm
And
happy to.
yeah, if you could please refresh us on what the landmarks law actually states. And just because something is precedent doesn't mean that we should be doing something going forward. Right?
So it's the, actually, can I
Yeah.
clarify? I guess, the way that, so the Landmarks Preservation Commission, is a citywide appointed group. It is their job to look at applications and ultimately decide on whether or not the, material change or like change in general that's proposed is too out of whack. Like, does it not take into consideration enough the preservation of this historic building? Our job as a community board, like the landmarks committee on the community board, is to bring a neighbor's perspective. So it's helpful, you know, like there have been a lot of meetings where somebody has said like, oh, I've worked in this building, or I live on that block, or, you know, here I can give some context on why the stairs might be that way, or why the upkeep might be so tricky there, or why, and then like our job as a community board is not necessarily to all be architects, even though there are a lot of architects on this, on this particular committee. Because the LPC is going to weigh in on the materials, the color, et cetera, as it relates to the landmarks law. Our job is to take that into consideration because we live in the community. We want it to be beautiful. We want it to uphold, we want it to like, you know, look like the historic fabric that is our city. Like there's a ton of value to that, not just economic value, but also just like quality of life value that we all get to live. But also we're also bringing a community perspective of what are the downsides of holding, are there economic downsides? Are there social downsides? Are there other downsides to holding the line really rigidly on particular materials or a particular look in a neighborhood?
But you're making assumptions that you know what those economic issues are for this building owner, and that hasn't been presented to us. I mean, I think we should kind of focus on the sort of more narrow question of whether this serves the building or not.
But you mentioned though, there was a couple of, on the landmarks law, there's a specific categories.
So there are some factors. The question is, it's not my belief that they're all equal factors. Like I feel like some way more than others. But that's certainly more of a philosophical discussion for another time.
The general rule of thumb is whether or not the proposed change is appropriate for the area in which it's residing, and that keyword is the appropriateness to the, as Simon said, the fabric. And here it's relatively straightforward because the building is one of several right in a row, and they're all basically, you know, siblings of each other. So, you know, does this proposed change interrupt that fabric that is already in existence there? So this one, you know, and obviously that doesn't satisfy your question because it's not very specific, and so it's kind of up to, unfortunately, the subjective criteria of each committee member to decide, is the visible appearance of the aluminum from the street significant enough to alter the change in the fabric from what was wood or what the other buildings' windows look like. And that's a question for us.
And the other concern is potentially the other buildings on the block also wanting to switch the materials. And then eventually you're in a situation where there isn't wood anywhere. And that like doesn't make a difference.
And part of the fabric of the neighborhood is that windows like this are wood and they do need to be maintained. And over the years, there's a process and they get painted and they look great. And then over the years, they diminish a little bit and they get repainted. as opposed to something which is basically a metal or plastic material, which always looks pristine. It takes away from the character of the neighborhood.
I just was gonna say, absolutely, and I think that, all the points raised, everyone has to listen to because we're supposed to work as a committee. But this is a committee in favor of our landmarks, and if we reduce our standards so that contextually we just, let go of everything because we're just making a neighborhood decision, what is the point of the committee? And if we set a precedence in allowing for, listen, no one in here, everyone's here because presumably, I don't know if I can speak for everybody, we love our landmarks, and we love our cities, and we that the city is changing dramatically. So the last thing that anybody wants to do in here, or at least I shouldn't speak for maybe you, David, but we don't want to impact what's happening in the city that would make people not want to buy and take care of our landmarks. You know, we want to make sure that we are great stewards of them. And so there's a balance here, right? We can't speak to the economic issues that are going on with these changes. All we really can speak to is it contextually appropriate to the building, without, raining on your parade, but also we're supposed to be stewards of the building and therefore also of the block. And it's a really tough call to make. We want to honor the building, but we don't want to make it a habit. We want our landmarks used, and we want them taken care of, and we understand that the inside of many buildings have to be changed in order to accommodate the use, and we run across so many different things in here, so we're not trying to make it difficult for you, sir, at all. We're pleased with what you're trying to accomplish, but it's a significant block, and we have to look at it through this purview, which is caretaking for the landmark.
I will say that the materials determination is sometimes tricky. I know that a few sessions ago, there was an application from Central Park Conservancy where we agreed to a modification, I think of like some railings from maybe wood to metal, to make it easier for them to maintain it. But ultimately, at least in my opinion, the railing wasn't like really a material part of the landmark, like it didn't really make a difference. In this case, we're dealing with windows on, it looks like there's 8, 9, windows that take up most of that facade of the building. So it's up to us whether or not we think that the materials of the building, in addition of the windows, in addition to the color, are material enough to justify maintaining it. And we'll only take a few more questions.
Well, just as a comment, talking about the replacement of the wood windows, which are original, just keep in mind, once that material is gone, it'll never be put back. The chances of an owner in the future doing a stunning restoration, they're very slim. We do see it once in a blue moon, thank goodness. But once that material is gone, it's gone forever. And, I think that that's a major part of what we're looking at. We have seen some changes over time, especially if it's original wood that's really deteriorated and then it's getting changed out for a modern wood version, same composition and all of that. We've seen those kinds of things. And unfortunately, we've seen things go from wood to aluminum as well. Once that stuff is gone, we have to remember that it's gone forever. There's nothing we can do to get it back.
John?
Yeah, I've heard people here mention appropriateness, contextual, I would add harmonious. These are all elements of landmark law and regulation. It's my understanding is our mandate ultimately to determine whether a particular application would be in compliance with landmark law and regulation. I just want just to keep that in mind as we go about making our decision. And I suspect, though I didn't hear it in the presentation, that this is a certificate, asking for a certificate of appropriateness. If that's the case, then that is our mandate to determine whether this is appropriate.
If this wasn't a big deal, it wouldn't be coming to us.
Right.
That's really the simple answer. They would approve it on a staff level if landmarks didn't think this was a big deal, but instead they're going to have a hearing.
That is correct. That's why we have jurisdiction, because they changed the color material.
I wondered if we could ask the applicant what the conversation with staff would be, like what is the staff, how is the staff leaning? And if anyone's interested, I did pull up the landmarks law that has the window criteria for primary facades. Read it if it's helpful.
Does it have anything that's relevant?
Yeah, it says, under the criteria, new windows or doors may be approved if they match the original or historic windows and doors in terms of details, materials, operation, configuration, and finish.
Okay.
That's pretty.
Yeah, that's fine. We're hearing it tonight.
And they go further into materials.
Okay.
Speak a little bit to that.
Well, we can't really take comments. Let's, take it to a vote. In the interest of time. Sure.
We
Do we
never
have
made a motion.
No.
Motion to deny.
Yeah, what's the motion?
The motion
Motion to
is to
deny.
deny.
To deny?
No unless.
If you.
No
Yes,
unless they.
yes, absolute
Deny.
denial. And so if you vote in favor, you're against the application. If you vote against it, then you're in favor of allowing it. Thank you. Morris?
Against.
So, yes.
Against the motion to deny, so I'm in favor of the problem.
Yeah, got it. Then no.
I am a yes. John,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Laura,
Let me make sure I'm voting correctly.
yes means deny.
Yes.
Neil, can you hear me?
I'm a no on the motion.
Karen,
Yes.
David? No. Barbara,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Sachi,
No.
Tony,
Yes.
Justine,
No.
and Zona.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. Motion passes.
All right. All right, thank you very much. As a reminder, our our full board meeting, I think it's December 12th. So the entire board will vote on it there. Thank you very much, though.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next application is from 30 Rockefeller Plaza, and it's an application to alter the marquees at 30 Rock. Located on the West 49th and West 50th Street elevations of the building. And the proposal also includes the replacement of the neon lettering with new LED lettering, as well as adding new lettering for the building address and limited locations to the marquee. Thank you.
Perfect. Good evening. Cass Stacker for Higgins Place Partners. My colleague Sarah Ripple is online. She's going to be controlling the slides. So we also have Richard Moon from Montroy Anderson Architects, who's available to answer any questions. We're calendared, just so you know, we're calendared for the December 17th public hearing at Landmarks. So we're sort of in line for that. And as you mentioned, the scope of work involves modifications to two marquees on the 49th Street and 50th Street sides of the building. Let's go to the next slide. Just a site plan. Is it possible for us to move the speakers here so that the image, can everybody see this? I just reorient.
We can reorganize.
Just maybe a little bit easier. And there's some details that I think are worth seeing. So I can just describe the site plan, which is probably familiar to most of the people on the committee. Rockefeller Center, Fifth Avenue, Rockefeller Plaza, and Sixth Avenue. The entire complex was designated as an individual landmark in 1985. And the scope of work, terrific, thank you. The scope of work is just at 30 Rockefeller Plaza here in blue outline. I'm sorry. Can't see. And then specifically in the red box, this is the marquee on 50th Street and the marquee on 49th Street. So those are the areas of work. Next slide. So as we mentioned, there are sort of two components that are part of the application. This is an existing photograph on the left and a rendered view on the right. The two components involve replacing the existing red neon lettering with new red LEDs, and then replacing some of the text, changing out the text also then in LED, and then adding building address signage on the street facing sides of both marquees. on 49th Street. I'll also just mention that the committee and the commission saw back in 2014, a new marquee on the 6th Avenue side of the building, which had LED signage, and the committee back in 2014 supported that, as did the commission. The building also, as some of you may know, has 25-foot tall letters up at the top now that say Comcast, and the committee and the commission also approved the change from neon lettering up at the top of the building to LED. That too was in 2014, and that was when it went from the GE building to the Comcast building. So just a little bit of context for the committee. Next slide. So looking at a little bit of history, so a historic photograph of 30 Rockefeller Plaza, obviously the largest building in the complex. This is the 49th Street side. The marquee is located mid-block. Two historic elevations, the 50th and 49th Street sides. Again, you can see the location of the marquees. And then we were able to find original drawings. This is from 1933 of the marquee that just shows the NBC Studios, 20-inch tall letters here, and 10-inch tall letters here. And then a photograph from 1940, so a few years after the drawings were done. And unfortunately, the marquee is sort of clipped, but you can just see the BC of NBC and Studios, and then across the top, Rainbow Room. So the Rainbow Room opened a few years after the building was finished, so that's why that doesn't show up on the marquee, but we do know that that signage was historic. Next slide. The 6th Avenue L. And the 6th Avenue L in the background, exactly. Some more recent photographs on the left. This is a photo from the 1980s when the building was designated. And you can see that actually at that time, the NBC Studios signage was not on the side of the marquee, and then there was this sort of wrapper across the top. We worked on an application back in 2003 when the observation deck reopened, and these are drawings from that presentation that we shared with the committee, as well as the commission, to reinstate the signage on either side and the front face of the marquee. And then, of course, the marquee as it appears today. So what went back in was neon signage at that time, but the proposal now is to change it to LED, largely for maintenance reasons, but also for energy efficiencies. The LED signage uses 1/10 the energy that the neon signage uses. And I learned recently that neon signage also includes mercury vapor in it to enhance the lighting. So getting rid of mercury is also a real positive. Next slide. Some details of the existing lettering, the larger scale NBC and the smaller letters above, and then just the comparison to the historic drawings. We're using these as a guide for the new letters. And the proposal really is to just replace the tubing. We're going to reuse the letter forms, the stainless steel letter forms, which we think these match the original drawing. So we're not sure if they were taken down and then reinstalled, but the new letter forms will match the detailing, and the existing ones at NBC and the Rainbow Room will be reused. Next slide. The other component is introducing some wayfinding address signage on the outboard side of the marquees. So presently, so here's the building again within the district complex. There are 3 primary entrances to 35 Rockefeller Plaza on the north and south sides, 49th and 50th, and also on the plaza. Of all of those, there's only one sign that says 30 Rockefeller Plaza. It sort of seems amazing maybe to the people in this room that, you know, people can't find 30 Rockefeller Plaza, but it actually happens. So one of the ways that we'd like to address that is by introducing signage on the curb side of the marquees. Next slide. Some detailed photographs just of what the signage looks like. So these are the 2 side street entries, 49 West 49th Street, 50 West 50th Street. And then it says Comcast building. It does not say 30 Rockefeller Plaza. And it's just this one sign, which is on this pier here with about 5-inch tall incised letter. That's the only address in the whole building. So we'd like to address that. No pun intended, as part of the proposal. Next slide. Marquees, as you know, are a feature of the district. This is the marquee that the commission approved on the 6th Avenue side at 1250. And they approved at that time new LED letters, and the community board as well supported that application. And then some more recent marquees within the complex, and historic photos of the lit marquees on 50th Street. Next slide. We've done a mock-up just to sort of understand how the appearance of the LED compares to the neon. So this is a mocked up N adjacent to the N, and then a detailed photo. It's very, very close. the photographs of the neon, you can see the B and the N actually appear slightly differently, but they have the same intensity and same color range. So we feel pretty confident that there'll be a very modest change in the appearance. Next slide. We also did a mock-up of the smaller letters. So again, we're reusing the letter form, so we're really just taking out the tubing and dropping in the LED within that form. Next slide. Some line drawings just illustrating the areas of work. Next. And again, just showing the existing elevation on the left and the proposed, changing out the tubing and then adding 30 Rockefeller Plaza on the curb side of both marquees. Next slide. And then the side elevation, changing the observation deck to top of the rock as it's known, and then replacing the tubing in the other letter forms. Next slide. Some detailing, existing enlarged detail and proposed enlarged detail. You'll see here in the notes, we're reusing all the stainless letter forms and just dropping in the new LED light sources. You'll see dimensionally they match. So the front face of the tubing is a 1/2 inch and the same dimension for the LEDs. Next slide. Similar dimensional similarities between the neon and the LED tubing. Next slide. For a little bit of context, the commission saw an application over the summer that our office worked on up at the Apollo Theater, where the commission actually approved a very similar scope of work, replacing neon signage with new LEDs within the Apollo, really iconic Apollo signage, the blade sign, as well as the marquee signage for that theater, that individual landing. Next slide. A little bit more detail on that, and then next slide. And then just a summary slide again. So no removal of historic fabric, addressing an important wayfinding issue at the building. And of course, introducing the LEDs, which is going to be a significant energy enhancement and will be have the same appearance really as the LED, as the neon, but with the energy performance and easier maintenance.
All right.
Happy to take any questions.
All right, thanks. I'll open up questions from the committee. I actually have a quick one. I know you mentioned that the committee approved the transition previously from the neon to the LED signs. Has the commission approved and the committee the addition of signage to the marquee previously?
Yes, so back in 2003, when we brought the observation deck to you, and we were adding signage onto it, the committee supported that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where it says observation deck?
Correct.
Okay, great. All right.
I'm just curious, and first of all, very thorough, as usual, great presentation. I'm curious how the new signage on the front gets attached to the historic fabric.
Right,
Did I miss that?
Yeah, so there are small anchor points in the backs of each of these letters that just anchor down. We can go to the section. Yeah, that anchor down to the rails.
Yeah.
So it will be the same. It'll be the same attachment into the strip.
Okay.
It'll be hidden behind the letter.
Okay.
But there are
But into the dark area.
It's actually it's into the ribbing. It's into the bands.
Oh, that part.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because that's proud. You can see it's about an
I
inch
see what
proud
you're
of the
saying.
dark
Yeah, yeah.
metal.
That's how the historic letters were attached.
Yes.
I'm curious, I really appreciate like the detail on the font work here. Is there actually a reference font that you have, or is it literally just like physical replicas of the letters that you have to make to maintain that consistency? Does that make sense?
That's a good question. I think we have, let's look at the elevation. Yeah, that's, I don't know that we have a full, I'd have to sort of compare the letters, but we have O's and P's and R's. I think we're actually okay. If there's a missing letter, we'll be sure that it's sort of consistent with a
Yeah, I think
historic font.
like glancing at it, I was like, is the proposed a slightly different font with top of the rock versus observation deck? And I
But I
wasn't.
meant it all be consistent. So I don't think we have a Z, so we'll have to sort of come up with a Z. So
Okay.
that's yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But thank you for pointing that out. We'll bring that up with the client.
That's what it is.
Any other questions? Mike?
Yeah, I have a question. Just, could you turn back to that picture where the gentleman is substituting, showing us the difference on the ladder? You're saying that you will be using the same shape to put the new lighting into. I'm just curious. So that end that he's holding in his hand is gonna be thrown away?
Right, so
That's just for photograph.
right, just because I think we all want, internally, we did this over the summer, we wanted to make sure that it looked right. But the stainless steel letter form is actually gonna be reused, so.
Thank you for sharing kind of the context around LED versus neon. Like, are you seeing more and more projects?
This is my second one.
Okay.
So I worked on the Apollo over the summer, so. You know, I think it's something probably that we'll see more of, but it's hard to say, whether people wanna
Yeah.
take it on. This is a modest installation, so.
Have you and understand it's probably not a huge data set, but have you seen neon getting updated with new neon? Or just limited?
We've seen both neon signage continue, to be repaired, and then in some instances replaced as well.
Okay, I guess we'll look to any members of the public who wanna. Questions, comments?
Sorry, I went last, a little late, but, just curious is what was driving this application? Was it the need for wayfinding, identification, and the change to the branded Top of the Rock? Or was it more the sustainability factor of hard to maintain and costly to maintain neon and LED just maybe more energy efficient and sustainable?
It's a little of all of those things, because I've been talking with folks at TishInspire for a number of years about LED to neon, particularly since 8 years ago, they put in LEDs on Sixth Avenue. But then with the wayfinding issue and the sort of understand that they wanted to sort of change the name of these things, that it just seemed to sort of make sense to do it now.
What's the approximate cost to prepare the landmarks submission for this?
I don't know. I mean, in terms of the filing process?
The whole thing,
Yeah,
the consultancy and the whole thing. Is there a ballpark?
I don't see.
50,000, 100,000?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Do we have any questions from? No. Okay, so let's go to the business question. Mike.
Are we ready to bring this to a vote, to make a motion?
Well,
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
before that, is there how do people feel? Are people in favor?
Yeah.
Seeing heads on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, part of me is a little bit sad to see the lost art of neon, because the visual difference is very subtle, but you don't see those dark sockets, so in a pure form, it's almost nicer to have the smoothness of the LED and the consistent, but you are losing a little bit of that gritty, old-fashioned way that we used to do this. And so it's like nostalgia versus, it just really does make more sense to go LED.
Yeah.
For all the reasons Cass mentioned, but so I'm in favor of it, but part of me is just a little sad to see the old technology
Yeah.
fall by the wayside.
Yeah. Okay, well, Mike. your
I'd like to
motion?
make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, sure, take it to vote. Morris? Approve.
I'm a yes. John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Omar?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Sachi?
Yes.
Tony? Yes. Justine?
Yes.
And so.
Yes.
All right, passes.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So our next applicant here is from 50 West 23rd Street, and that's an application for an adaptive reuse project to convert an existing office building to residential use. The existing building is comprised of 2 buildings at 37 West 22nd Street and 50 West 23rd Street, and is located in the Ladies Mile Historic District, just as a reminder, this is the Landmarks Committee, so we're not commenting on the use of the building or any of that stuff. We're just looking at the landmarks aspect of it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I'm Dave Lombino. I'm from Two Trees Management. We are a ground up real estate developer from Brooklyn, based in Brooklyn. This is an outlier for us coming to Manhattan, but we've owned this building for about 10 years. And it's our long-term intention to convert it to residential. So we've submitted an application to the Landmarks Commission, and which brings us before you today. We're excited about this project. Just so you know, in the context of our work, we completed perhaps the most ambitious and meticulous restoration of a landmark recently in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, the Domino Sugar Factory, LED lighting, just FYI. And that is now an office building. We are also long-term owners in Dumbo, where we've maintained a number of buildings that we own within a historic district similar to the Ladies Mile. And you see some of the work here we've done over the years in Dumbo. We did a restoration and addition to convert an office building to residential in downtown Brooklyn. This is 110 Livingston Street. That is now about 20 years old, but we are stewards of landmarks around the city and are hopeful that we and looking forward to treating this building, this set of buildings with the same level of detail and meticulousness as we've done historically. With that in mind, we brought on Benetti Kazursky, a terrific architect that we've worked with. I'll let Dominic here talk about this detailed proposal, and I'm here to answer questions about whether they're concerning this landmark or our intentions or whatever you may ask for this presentation. Dominic?
Thank you. Yeah. Good evening. So a little bit of context. I'm Dominic Kazursky, also here is co-founding partner Enrico Benetti. We have worked on various adaptive reuse buildings. We did all the interiors for Two Trees of the Domino Refinery, where we really worked with the whole team to express the new reuse of the existing building. Over here, we worked in Chelsea on the Avenues World School, which was the warehouse building that we converted into a school. And actually in the same neighborhood, we did Pace Gallery building, which was a ground up building as of right. So just to talk about this project. So we're in the middle of the Ladies Mile between 22nd Street and 23rd Street. It's one building with an adjacent building that are linked together, which are right now in an office building. So one thing that is important to consider for this project is that it is being thought of with a view to the city of Yes, that is going through a city council in the next few weeks. This is a very deep office building going from 23rd Street to 22nd Street with an Art Deco era building next to it on 22nd Street. So this is the 23rd Street facade, concrete building that had been modified sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, with some additions put on, decorative additions, cornices, and new windows put in at that period as well. And then on the 22nd Street, this is the backside of the 50 West 23rd Street. So a very similar treatment, but these windows are also relatively new, maybe 20 years old, in a factory glazing style. Art Deco building next door, which is actually in pretty good shape, but both this building and this building are linked through the floors as part of the offices that currently Two Trees owns. And just keeping on this slide for a second, this is the neighbor to the west. It's a residential building called the Caroline, and you can see this courtyard is pretty deep and quite a lot in shadow for these residences. Over next door here, many of you will know the building on 23rd Street as being the Home Depot building. So some quick context on the Art Deco building.
notably at the top of the building, there are pediments and tile work embedded into the concrete base of the building. And then just a close-up of 22nd Street, next to the Art Deco building, you can see these factory glazing windows put in. So looking inside the building, this is what we're seeing on 22nd Street. Next slide. Very deep floor plates, so almost no light in the center of the space, but a really great example of industrial architecture. So, as I said, industrial architecture, so the original building was built as a commissary for Shaft, which was making cakes and distributing around the city. So there we are, right in the middle of the Ladies' Mile, as I mentioned, the Home Depot building now, and on 23rd Street, this is what we're looking at. And this is from the landmark report from the late 80s. And actually the building is in its state from when it was built in 1954 as this industrial commissary building. Next slide. So we actually presented this project to Landmarks informally to get some feedback from them early in the spring. They asked us to look for some precedents and other examples. We'll just touch on them very quickly. So we've arranged this with the before and after slides of buildings in the neighborhood that have either additions on the top or new buildings, completely new buildings. Right across the street from 23rd Street was an open parking lot, and then this new tower was built in its location. Moving outside of the district a little bit, a couple of examples in the Gainesville Street Meatpacking District, where there were additions put on top of the building.
Yeah, excuse me, this is helpful, but can you go to the changes and then
Yes,
talk about?
just to give a little bit of historical context, so we'll go a little faster. But some research into the buildings that were not there up until 1954. But this is the Deco building that was built in 1925. This is on the 22nd Street side. You can see this industrial treatment of the building. This is 23rd Street, so it's a series of glass louvers, metal spandrel panels, and loading docks on 23rd Street. Okay. Just the historic report. We just highlighted some of the areas, and that's when we'll get into the changes that we're making. So analysis of 23rd Street, as I just mentioned, this is showing what was the original building. So again, before the late 80s when changes were made, there's a base at the bottom, concrete structure with infill of metal panels and louvered glass. And then and then this is what was changed in the late 80s. The louvers were taken out, metal windows inserted into that, and then some sort of bolts, cornices, which are just pipes bolted to the concrete and painted grey to match. On 22nd Street, so there was the original building had this factory glazing on it, together with a setback area also in concrete. And this is the present condition. Next slide. And then the Deco building, very little of it has changed since 1925. It's in very, very good condition. I think Two Trees have done a good job maintaining it. So you can see those buildings now in context. 23rd Street. So again, the Home Depot building. Here's this residential building, the Caroline. So that's West 50 West, and then on 22nd Street, the Art Deco building and the backside of that building.
So a little bit of context on height. All the blue buildings shown in this, in the Ladies Mile, are 12 to 18 stories tall. So looking at making this into a residential building, we know that we need to have a less deep floor plate in order to be able to have proper light and air to all the apartments. The best way to do that is to make a courtyard in the center of the building. So what we are proposing is that we're cutting a courtyard into the L of the building, releasing more space that is continuing the space that is already made around by the courtyard. And then taking that volume from the courtyard and then putting it on top of the building. So basically transferring the mass of the building up on top. We decided, because 23rd Street is the wider street, that the bigger amount of mass could go onto 23rd Street, and so we've been studying that with some additions on 22nd Street as well, here in the light blue. So to give everybody a little bit of context, it's the existing condition. So this is the back of the Art Deco building, and this is the courtyard of the residential building next door. You can see these photographs, and they have this courtyard there. So just looking at this plan, what we would be doing is extending that courtyard and bringing light and air to the apartment. So obviously something like that involves some studies. There's the existing condition that's proposed. The existing courtyard is quite a lot in shade. Oddly enough, when we open up this, there's a slight shift in lighting, and there's a little bit more light in the courtyard. So we studied a lot the facade, as this would be residential project. We're looking to get as much light into the space as possible. Currently, the building has these high sills. Interestingly enough, the architects, Corrie and Corrie, were the architects of the Starrett Lee building. And in fact, when they talked, so the landmark report talks about this building, it mentions Corrie and Corrie as being pioneers of industrial buildings, factory glazing, and also thinking about the industrialization of spaces and making them function. So you all know the Starrett Lee building. Next slide. Really high. On 22nd Street, so this is the existing Art Deco building, and then this is the proposed Art Deco building with its next door neighbor. There's a setback here in concrete and glass. We're proposing to open that all up as well. And next slide. And here you can see a little bit more detail of the thinking. Maintaining the concrete frame, bringing back these metal spandrels, and then investigating a new factory glazing pattern fitting into that. On the Art Deco building, leaving pretty much everything exactly as is, maintaining everything. And now on 23rd Street, so this is the existing building as it sits now. As I said, heavily modified in the late 80s with some cornices and these windows put in here. So what we're proposing is opening up the facade more, spandrel panels in formed metal, and then set back by 15 feet would be the bulk area transfer of space that we're taking out from the courtyard. So a little bit of detail on that. Next slide. And up in the new tower, similar detailing. So some ideas about factory windows, references back to the tiles and decorative elements of the deco building, and then a detail of an idea for the zinc spandrel panels, which would be matching what was there when the building was originally done. So existing elevation on 23rd Street, proposed elevation on 23rd Street, and you can see this added bulk setback from the face of the building. And on 22nd Street, a step back addition on top of the Art Deco building, because we're able to remove some water tanks and a large air conditioning unit, which is sitting as a huge bulk on the roof. It's actually released some space on the roof, and you can see here the heights in relation to the existing. So just a reminder here where we are, we're still within 12 to 18 stories in the Lady Mile. So some renderings, and 23rd Street. So go back a slide. So the neighboring building here, the reskinned existing building, and then the new tower part on top. Looking from the street, so this now becomes a residential building, the retail on the ground floor. This would be some sort of amenity here, so bringing greenery in at a high level, and really reworking the way that the building engages with the street. On 22nd Street, so it says the Art Deco building being restored, the backside of the 23rd Street building, similar treatment, opening up this concrete wedge at the top of that building. Next slide. So interesting enough that this part is barely visible from, because 22nd Street is quite narrow, it's quite barely visible to see that, and all we're doing is just opening it up. Proposed entrance, so we are, go back one slide, looking at glazed terracotta details that will pick up on some of the terracotta detailing of the Art Deco building. We're proposing that the main entrance to the residential building would be through the Art Deco building, so picking up on some of the panelization that is happening at street level. Next slide. And then looking at the top there, so you start to see an idea of a penthouse sitting on top of the Art Deco building, set back, all the pediments all remain, and then this top of the 22nd Street building with the potential also for a setback penthouse from there. And the next slide. So looking down on the building, so this is that new courtyard that we've cut out, the Art Deco building, and then the existing 1954 building with the addition on top. And looking from 23rd Street up at the building. And we've already been working on sightline studies, so we'll just click through these quickly. So these are sightline studies that we're also building a couple of mock-ups for our landmarks presentation on the 17th of December. So just a little, go back one slide. So you can see here the pediments at the Art Deco building. They don't have anything behind them. They're freestanding. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, this is a big application. Anyone have any questions?
Did you say you didn't do sightlines yet? You're still preparing the mock-ups?
We're doing the mock-ups on Monday. Next Monday.
You could tell from this. Well, yeah. Okay, so there's nothing that you can show us, or somebody walking by, you can't see any version of what might be visible just yet on the outside?
No, not just yet. Yeah, but all our renderings are to scale. So, and we montage them into photographs. So now we're making those mock-ups for real.
What it seems that the biggest change is gonna be the addition of the floors onto 15 West. What is in the building next door in 60 West? Are those floors gonna be blocked now by the new height?
It's a rental building, they're set back, their views will, on the west facing, on the east facing side of that building. At the top, there will be views that will change. It'll be blocked.
Okay. I'm not sure, I'm not sure.
Not flush,
No,
right,
Oh, it's close, but not right on.
not right on. Yeah.
On slide 55 of the deck, I don't know if it's still the same.
Shows elevations.
Yeah, it's the, yeah, that one. Just, by my uneducated eye, it looks as if some of the floors from West 60th Street are obscured. It looks to me, again, ignorantly, like it's right up against the first couple of floors there. It's not.
Yeah, there aren't any windows on that wall.
Okay.
There are windows on that setback. Yeah.
Got it, okay.
lot lines.
Right.
From a zoning point of view, is it as of right?
Yes.
Follow up to that, is it the same FAR, the massing you're removing to create the courtyard, is that the same floor area that's being placed on the roof as part of the overbuild?
Not all of it. No.
So you're actually lessen
Yes. with
square
less
footage
than we're
then?
taking away. Yeah.
So even though you're taller, your square footage is less.
Yes.
So you mentioned that there was a light study done. What is the impact on light to the surrounding area?
In terms of the courtyard,
Also sidewalks, like just the surrounding area? But I guess, can you describe the light study and the impacts, summarize the impacts?
so we studied the impact from the point of view of the courtyard, because obviously there could be some impact on the courtyard of the Caroline building. So that's the Caroline building, and any shadows that are being cast by the new tower, are kind of casting the shadows onto itself.
When you say itself, you mean, you said, yeah. The shadows,
Yeah, yes, what we haven't studied is any shadows being cast onto the street down below.
so there are additional shadows being
Um,
cast onto the courtyard?
Well, that's the tower there, and this is the sun moving around, so a lot of the shadows are being cast this way. So the sun is moving like that. It's,
Onto your building.
yes, yes, yes.
Can we look at the 22nd Street facade? I just want to make sure I understand. I'm a little confused. The area, I guess the one that more the rendering where it shows the sloped,
Yes, sure.
so that's existing?
Yes, this is existing.
Okay, I was a little confused by
Yeah,
that.
yes.
And what are you putting behind, can you show me like in plan?
Maybe
The
a
upper
three
left.
D view, map of the roof, it's easier to understand, yeah. Yes. this-
Yeah.
So this is all existing in terms of its form.
Yeah.
There are those slots
Mhm.
in this facade, and then this would be a new addition here, set back from that base.
And the addition on the Art Deco building?
Yes.
Can you just point that out, how
Yes.
far back it is from the, so it's not touching?
No, it's 15 feet away.
Okay, from the historic
Yes,
facade.
yeah.
Okay.
And so we're marking this up and this up. This is 22nd. This is 22nd Street, which is a narrow street, and then 23rd wider at the back.
And the addition, is that one piece that we're looking at?
Yes, this is the addition on the 23rd Street.
Right, and that's not infringing on the light in the courtyard for both buildings because the sun is just to the south.
Yes, the sun is moving like
Yeah.
this, but we sculpted the back of the building in order to get as much light kind of slicing into that courtyard, which is why it's modeled like that.
Morris Adis, big fan of a lot of your projects. Out of curiosity, I assume this is a rental building?
We haven't determined it. It's, you know, we have a number of existing leases with office tenants that run 4, 5, 6 years out. So, we haven't determined the makeup, but, we know it'll be housing.
Right.
Housing.
How many units?
The total project square footage is about 350.
350.
So you're looking at least 350, you know, units of new housing.
Right.
Market value.
Of the apartments, on a rental, on a condo basis, you know, you're looking north of probably, you know, $1,800 to $2,000 a square foot.
Any other questions related to the landmark assessment?
Yeah.
Just, from the renderings, and I'm really hoping on the 23rd Street side, those neon glass awnings are gone. So,
Oh, yes.
thank you. Thank you. Those,
Yeah, that was a crusade.
yeah. And if I could ask another, so about the Art Deco building, I know, so the main entrance to the residential building will be here, right, in the Art Deco
Right now, it's
building?
proposed to be
And
there.
I saw your one slide that had, excuse me, a lot of the materials and pinpoints. Can you tell us exactly what original materials are getting removed from this building specifically?
22nd or 23rd?
The Art Deco building on 22nd?
Yeah, kind of nothing. So we have, those existing, elements here. And, this is currently a retail storefront, so we're building this new.
And all the other bays?
The other bays are staying existing. They have this, very strange skylight with a very tall, that we're leaving it all existing.
Are the windows getting replaced in the other bays? At the
Yes,
street level?
yes, yeah, I suspect.
Are they, if I just follow up, are they original?
I'm not aware that they are. They don't look original.
Are they steel?
You guys remember?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
that they look more recent.
Yeah, they look recent.
Made,
Yeah.
but recent.
Thank you.
Is the ground floor level on 23rd Street going to be retail, or is that a lobby, or and is there going to be signage and doors and different things?
So the proposal is to have a secondary entrance to residential on 23rd Street. But we collectively, together with Two Trees, felt that 22nd Street feels like a nicer street as a residential street. So the idea would be that these would be retail units. But they would only be retail to here because this could either be an apartment or it could also be an amenity. So this would, we proposing that this should beautify the, what the pedestrians are perceiving at ground level.
All right, any other questions before we open it up to members of the public?
Just one question.
Changes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Cut a courtyard into the L of the building, releasing more space for light and air, transferring the mass of the building to the top instead, which is set back. And then there are some changes to the ground floor, the ones that you mentioned when you were just talking to Tony with about the neon, the glass awnings and entrances. Sorry, yeah, I'm trying to summarize the changes.
Yeah, so the entrances will be new entrances, but they're going to be part of a whole new treatment at the ground level. But the smaller entrance or the less secondary entrance would be to 23rd Street, is where the 23rd Street entrance is now. But what we're proposing is that the building would be entered from the Art Deco building, just because it's more beautiful.
Okay.
Would you say that my summary of the other changes is correct? Would you add any other changes?
No, I like that summary. Thank you.
Okay, I know Neil has a question. We'll let him ask it and then we'll go to the public.
Yeah, and just making sure I understand. So the designs on the Art Deco building on 22nd Street, those aren't being changed, the sort of artistic elements.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Any members from the public? Okay, so we'll go to business session. Just a reminder, this is for members of the committee to speak. How do people feel about this? Like,
So usually when we are entertaining a building in a landmarked area, we have what we sightlines and there's building with the orange stuff on the roof and stuff, what you can see, but we don't need that here, right? Because you can see pretty plainly those additional floors on the top, even though they're kind of slanted back a bit and 15 feet back as well. So there's gonna be sightline a lot. From 23rd Street, not so much from 22nd Street, but from 23rd Street from the park, from Madison's, Madison Square Park. And there's gonna be a lot of changes in the overall view. Am I correct? And
I mean, we don't have the mock-ups, but it looks like that.
But even without the mock-ups, just these pictures tell me that.
I mean, there's material.
That would be, you know, in the past, a big red flag for us. I like trees, I love them. I think they're doing a great job in Brooklyn here too, but just my comment.
Other thoughts? I mean, these are pretty aggressive changes.
John, comments? For the 50 West 23rd Street, it's tricky because I don't know if it officially qualifies as a non-contributing building to the historic district, but it's certainly very different and it's had so many changes over the years and not in a positive way. You know, the changes that they're making, I think, are an improvement overall and actually contribute a little bit more toward the historic district. The bulk is also tricky. 23rd Street is a main thoroughfare. That's typically where we find the bulk. We've seen it across the street at Flatiron House. They did the same thing, buying air rights, and they're pretty high too. I guess one of my concerns is how much of the Art Deco addition is going to be visible from the street. It's only one story. So that kind of makes me feel good. Our hope is that that is much more of a contributing building. That aside, I actually don't have a huge concern with 50 West 23rd and the reconfiguration of the mass. I think their changes overall are a much better direction. And more importantly, I think the Art Deco building, which is largely original, they're doing a lot of really positive things to maintain it and make sure that it remains as kind of a centerpiece focal point for that block, which is not a super pretty block in general, just because it's the back of a lot of the other buildings. I wish we had sight lines though.
Yeah.
That's the only thing, but otherwise I think it's overall a pretty decent application.
Okay. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Tony, but I also agree with Mike that it's a lot of bulk. I mean, it's as of right and overall, I think, at least for the building that was built in the 50s, it's not as impactful, but you know, as everything continues to go up and up in that neighborhood, you know, I mean, I'm not gonna be against it, but I do have some reservations about the amount of the bulk that's going on.
Okay. I mean, it seems like people are in favor of that, so, for the most part, so someone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Morris? Approve. Yes. John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Paula?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
David? Yes. Barbara?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Sachi?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Justine?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next applicant is from 249 West 45th Street. That's the Imperial Theater. And this is an application to alter the designated interior, including the removal of existing sound and light lock walls, new doors and openings, replacement of light fixtures and alterations to the existing texture. The application also proposes the restoration of repair of interior features.
Good evening. I'm Valerie Campbell. I'm from Kramer 11 and we're land use counsel to the Schubert organization. I think many of you know Julio Peterson, who's the vice president of real estate, and Michael Costello, who is the architect. So this is a really exciting new project. Here you see a historic picture of the interior of the Imperial Theater, which was built in 1923 and designed by Herbert Kraft. Its auditorium is a designated interior landmark, but the exterior facades of the building and the narrow lobby that leads into the auditorium are not designated. Currently, the theater lacks really sufficient space for patrons to circulate around, restrooms and concessions, and it doesn't have adequate support space for the productions. Similar to the Court, which is now the James Earl Jones Theater, the Schuberts are going to address these deficiencies by constructing an annex on West 45th Street that will provide support space for the theater and space for the theater patrons. And this will be adjacent to the historic theater off of the landmark site. They will be applying for a floor area bonus for the rehabilitation of the theater pursuant to section 81-745 of the zoning resolution. And that's going to be coming back to the land use committee of this board when that application is certified. If we can move to the next slide, this table of context, next. Next, okay, so here's the site plan. And you can see the Imperial Theater is in the purple, the dark purple, and you enter from West 45th Street. Main auditorium is on West 46th Street. Adjacent to the theater lobby is the Imperial Annex site, which is where the new building will be constructed. The lobby is also adjacent to the Music Box Theater. The lot 1 will be the site of a new building. So in conjunction with the theater rehabilitation bonus, we'll be submitting an existing conditions report to Landmarks that's required under section 81-743, and that will be a comprehensive assessment of the physical and operational status of the theater. And it will document the condition of the significant architectural features that are identified in the designation report. What we're showing you tonight is one component of the overall plan, which is the work that is proposed in the designated interior. And this is work that is, much of this work is restorative. It will be approved with staff. But some of the work requires a certificate of appropriateness, which is what we'll be focusing our attention on. So Nikki will now describe the overall scheme and the existing conditions and the proposed work that we're going to be doing.
Advance to the next slide. Hi, so I'm Michael Costello. Everybody calls me Mickey, so you may call me Mickey if you like. And we were the architects for the James Earl Jones Theater, so it's a very similar project that we worked with the Schubert organization on. So this is a plan of the existing condition. Currently, you enter the theater from West 45th Street and then through a narrow lobby, which is not part of the designation, into the historic theater. Adjacent to this lobby building is the lot where we'll be building a new building. And on that lot right now, we've constructed some temporary toilets. They're basically like trailers that, porta potties, big porta potties.
Nice.
Very
They're kind of nice
expensive
looking.
porta potties connected to the theater.
But they are temporary, you have a temporary use permit for it and we have to renew it periodically. So we're really going to focus on the historic theater. Shall we go to the next slide? There is a balcony in this theater and a mezzanine space, which currently has restrooms in it. The new building will have new restrooms, so these restrooms will be repurposed for front of house support. And this is the plan of the existing balcony. It's basically a big crossover which exits back into this building here and out to a fire escape on the 46th Street side. And what's not shown here is there's a tech booth that has been built in here by one of the productions that will be altering. You can see this is a photo of the existing condition on 45th Street. Adjacent here, you can see the temporary toilets which have been constructed in the slot. The adjacent music box theater will not be affected by this, but the new design will try to integrate into the context. This is the 46th Street. It's really pretty back of house. Part of our proposal is we'll be replacing the doors in this area. Currently, those doors are just regular hollow metal doors, and they're pretty much covered up with advertisements. It's a photo of the narrow lobby building. At its widest point, it's about 13.8, and it narrows down to as little as 11 feet 4. And this is a theater with 1,450 occupants plus the staff. So you can imagine 1,500 people coming through this entrance for a show. It's really constricted. Similarly at intermissions and people are crowded out here. The bathrooms are only at that middle level in between, and it needs some help.
Yes.
Go back to this. None of this is in part of the historic designation of the theater. Next slide. Here we see some photos of the current condition of the theater. As you can see, a lot of the original ornamentation, it's at a mess, has been removed, especially on the box seats. A lot of it is intact and in pretty good shape. Our intent is to really restore all of that to the original, and make other improvements. So we'll talk about those in a minute. Advance the slide. You can just get a feel for the condition of it. This is a part of the tech booth that's been constructed in there. We think it was put in by production years ago, and they just left it there and they just kept using it. They never really,
It's a ladder.
took it out. Yeah, it's a ladder. And oddly enough, there's no real headroom in here, so when you go up the ladder, you have to crouch down to get in. So we're gonna fix all that. And you can see the ornament here. It's kind of dinged up, and it really needs to be restored. So what we're proposing, this is a long list of 17 items, mainly cosmetic things, restoring the plaster, changing the lighting, but the things that we need to focus on, or that we'd like to remove, 2 sound locks that are currently on the house left and house right sides. I'll explain that in a minute. We want to modify the tech booth, which is not original anyway. And we also wanted to modify some doors along the 46th Street facade to make them acoustically rated. So just to kind of give you a context of that, this is the existing theater. Here, there's a sound and light lock that go into this new lobby building, the existing lobby building, and also a sound and light lock on the 46th Street side. And what we're proposing is to remove those, and the entrance will be directly into the new lobby building. And part of the reason to do this is to allow better circulation in these areas and to add a few additional seats in the house. And we've done some preliminary studies, and we feel that we can get good sight lines in these seats, so it would increase the
Including ADA. correct?
Yeah.
Additional ADA.
Go back 1 second, Arnold. There's some seating in here that we're planning to remove. You'll see a rendering of that in a minute. At the balcony level, essentially we'll be keeping this crossover. These existing doors will go right into the new annex for egress. And we'll be building new platforms here for additional ADA access at the balcony.
And if I may, the annex will allow for individuals with ADA needs.
The
We'll have
elevator, yeah.
elevators, and escalators to get to those other levels, which they can't now.
So there's about 450 seats up here, which will now have access. Going. This is a focus on the tech booth. Currently, it looks like this. It's not really centered in the space, and it's kind of in two parts that were built at different times. So our proposal is to rebuild it, centered on the space and to widen it slightly, and then to blend it into the existing ornament in a sensitive way instead of just slapping it on. Also, the rear of the orchestra here was I mean, this is not for certificate of appropriateness. This is just restored. We'll be restoring this to its more original pattern. You can see here the hallway is very narrow, so we'll be taking out this row of seats and widening it. And this is what it looks like now in the back of the theater.
And just during intermission and when people are coming in, that little area there is fully congested and creates a lot of problems. So by us moving that, really opens it up, and then we're able to compensate by removing those sound locks, adding a couple extra seats.
This is a sketch of the proposed tech booth, and you can see a rendering of it here. So we're intending to curve the ends of it to make it not protrude as much into the space, and then to continue the detailing of the main house up into that so that it blends in more, use the same materials. We'll still get up there with the ladder, but
No elevator.
no elevator. It's still going to,
But the height issue will be, correct.
well, I'll just address that while we're on it. We'll be extending up into the ceiling here, so you'll be able to stand up in there and we'll fix that. This is a sketch showing how we're gonna modify the existing house. This is house right, and then proposed. And what we're doing is we're planning to take out this is the sound and light lock, but we want to build it back in so that it looks the same. It's just going to be about 6 feet back from where it is now. So it's expanding the orchestra slightly. Go to the next. So this is a rendering of what it looks like today. And this is the proposed rendering. Similarly, on the left, there are a number of egress doors along this facade. We're planning to remove those and to move that wall back, and then to utilize the same wall treatments here and materials on that side. And then the doors will be replaced with new STC rated doors. And this is pretty much what it looks like now and what it would look like in the proposed situation. What are the red lines? That's just the area that's being altered. Actually, go back a second. From here up is the same. This upper part is the same. It's the lower part that's being moved. 6 feet back. Some details of the doors. The doors now have been replaced with just regular hollow metal doors. So we'll
go back to the,
We'll put very
panels.
acoustical doors because there's a lot of noise coming in from the 45th, 46th Street side. So without the sound and light block, we want to make sure that folks enjoy the show quietly.
And last but not least is the lighting. Currently in the theater, a lot of lighting has been added, and it's been added in places which are just kind of randomly in the middle of a lot of the ornamental detail that's there. So our idea is to get in here and clean this up and redo the lighting so that the lighting falls in between the areas where there's not ornament. This gives you an idea of some of the existing chandeliers. The chandeliers are not original but we're keeping them. We're not putting new chandeliers. And we will be replacing the sconces along the walls that are currently not original. So we're going to find something that's more appropriate than what's there now. Kind of hard to see in this photo, but there's a lot of detail ornament on the fronts of these boxes, and we'll be replacing that as well as the ornament on the front of the balcony rail. Duplicate. Actually, they have plaster castings of it, so we will duplicate it in plaster, not in fiberglass. So this just gives you an idea of that area. But this is a kind of a staff level thing. It's not, this is a photo of the historic proscenium. The existing proscenium is covered up with a set right now, but our idea is to restore this to its original state and to replace the curtains in kind as well to replicate the curtains. We're going to keep the end standards and renovate the seats, all new seating. The seating in the boxes will be more appropriate for what's happening now. And the last one, this is just kind of sort of the mood board for the changes in the color and the textures. Want to brighten it because it's very dark. A lot of Adams-esque buildings are bright and sort of airy, and we just feel we can brighten it up and make it better. I think that's it.
All right, thank you very much.
The appendix just shows the annex, just how it's gonna connect.
Yeah.
So this is not subject to landmarks, but it's just really to give you a sense of what the annex will do.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's very difficult to find property adjacent to a theater in Times Square. And when we were able to do this at the court, now the James Earl Jones, it really made the theater a lot better. Individuals could get, from artistic perspective, the patrons are better off. And so we really worked very hard to be able to acquire this piece of land, even though this is not part of the landmarks approval, but just to give you some context, to be able to make this theater better for the patrons. We're going below grade to have more rooms for dressing rooms and wardrobe. Right now, they're stuck in the trap area below the stage. It is an absolute mess. So being able to do that really opens up the theater itself and allows people to flow better while they're in the theater and enjoying their space. The bathroom issue has always been a problem in all of our theaters. And so anytime we can find an opportunity, I think the ladies probably know that better than the men, to allow for more bathrooms and better circulation through the theater. We really look for that, but it's just very tough to find a vacant property adjacent to a theater in Times Square. So we're really excited about this.
So the landmarks application, we should be at the public hearing on the 17th as well. And as he said, they're going to be not focusing on the restorative work. We'll show it to them because it's important, but they're really looking at the sound locks, the tech booth, the lighting changes, and the new doors.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Thank you for that detailed presentation. Do you have any questions? Barbara?
Yeah, this is actually the plan I was really interested in seeing. So you're not really concerned about getting rid of that second set of doors on the 46th Street side? You feel like you will accomplish enough in terms of the sound and the light mitigation?
Yes,
with the
because
proper
we have that
doors?
situation in other theaters where
Yeah.
there's just one door. So like, for example, at the Belasco Theater,
Yeah,
we have that scenario, so we have highly acoustically rated doors to minimize any sound, infiltration.
Mhm.
So but we're always concerned about that. That's where we're gonna be extra diligent in making sure
Sure.
that that's
yeah.
addressed.
And, it's, so everybody's coming in really and going during the intermission and the start, through these two doors. Well, those doors, but into the house itself.
Correct. Well, the balcony goes up here right
Well,
now.
that's true.
Everybody goes through these
I
doors because the
see.
stair to the balcony is inside the theater.
I see.
And it's very tight.
Yeah.
So how do people get, I'm just curious how people get up to the balcony.
Well, there's two escalators here.
Oh,
You
I
should
see.
take them up.
Okay. Yeah, it's not a part of the landmark.
And
but
we
I'm
have,
just
it's not,
curious.
and we have
Yeah.
elevators as well.
Okay.
And additional bathrooms everywhere for everybody on multiple levels.
And a bar.
And a bar.
Who cares what the play is? We'll just go.
First off, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was really awesome. This might be a minor nitpick, but please let me know if it's not. I'm curious regarding the tech room. I'm sure the AV people appreciate raising the ceiling height there, but I couldn't help but wonder, would that have any impact elsewhere? Because I imagine raising like the ceiling height of a room could potentially have an impact elsewhere. Will there be anything that is of concern?
No,
by doing
there's just like a crawl space up there.
Yeah.
You know, it's a plenum, so we're only raising it like,
Yeah.
what I think.
And it's really not visible to the.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great.
It won't be, you won't see it from the exterior.
No.
I was wondering if you could clarify what parts of the interior are designated. Is it all of the
Purple.
interior?
The purple is
All
the
of the purple.
designated interior, so it's.
Really the house, not the stage. Right?
Well, the stage is included,
The
I mean,
stage
you
is-
couldn't, but
It's a
I mean,
stage.
they mainly want to keep the size of the stage.
Yeah.
So it's the orchestra, it's that little mezzanine area, and it's the balcony.
So the areas in white are not designated?
No,
Okay.
no, they're not designated.
And my second question is the dispersion of the accessible seating. I see you have some in the back and the sides, and it's great you're making the second story accessible with the elevators. But is there any front? And I'm sure this is code driven that you have to have dispersion, but I didn't notice any accessible seats in the front of the theater.
We've not looked at that at this time, but we're trying to provide an equitable solution for everybody. That these buildings are 100 years or so older, and so it's tough to maneuver everything.
Yeah.
But we're trying to find the best locations and really good seating. I mean,
Yeah.
these are good sight lines.
Yeah, I was curious if that's because the rake of the theater is accessible, so you
Rates
had
are
to
very
put them.
steep.
Yeah, and the rake as well.
Okay, so you really can't put them in the front of the theater because the rake is too.
Right.
Okay.
These are actually the approved, currently approved locations.
Okay, so no change.
Yeah, so we're not changing the locations, but we.
We're just adding in the
Adding
upper
them.
level.
So maybe I'll talk about where you're adding them on the second floor. Are you removing the original fixed seating to have the companion chair and then create a space
Yeah,
for
so
a
maybe go
wheelchair?
back one or no. So,
No, that was
one
it.
more. So for instance, here, this is now an ADA position, but we don't have enough width for a companion seat. So by moving this wall back 6 feet, we gain some more space.
And can you just show on the second floor, because these are existing to remain, but the second floor is what's new? Right.
This is all new. So these are the wheelchair positions and the companion seats.
Okay,
And you get direct access coming up the elevator.
Yeah, so you come up this elevator and right into the theater here.
so were you removing any original theater seats to make those two banks of accessible seating?
No, we just added,
Well, there's a-
switching them up.
There's a row of seats here.
There's row seats there
We
already.
have to remove.
So that, what she's asking is, you are removing the fixed seats. Are these,
The fixed seats are not actually part of the designated features of the big theater in here, but,
so these are always gonna be loose seats? If you don't have wheelchairs, you will have loose seats in those areas?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
In the purple area, is there any change in the color scheme at all?
Our intent is to brighten it up because it's
Yeah, you
very
mentioned
dark
the word
now.
bright, but that's,
Yeah.
I wanted to get clarification on that. Were you just referring to lighting, so it looks lighter, or will you literally have a brighter color?
The red color that it is now is not the original color. It was painted in the sixties or something, and then they just kept painting it that color. So this is more the where we want to be with it. From a
Closer to
color
the
standpoint.
original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a couple of questions. How long is this gonna take? How long will the theater be down?
Good question.
We don't want theaters to be closed, right? We think that typically with the Court Theater, down to James Earl Jones, it took about 1.5 years or so. So about that time.
Okay, as far as the seating goes, are you changing the seating or just the upholstery or to brighten up the color?
New seating.
New seats, the whole mechanism.
The seating that's in there now is not the original seating, it was replaced, I don't know when it was last
A
replaced.
few times.
It's not back to 1928 or whatever.
So you're replacing with the same size?
Actually, they're gonna widen some of them and.
So there's gonna be more seats than before? The seating will be less or more than before? Because you're taking out some, but you're adding some?
We're adding a few extra.
So the total number will be more or less?
I don't have the total exact
I'm
number, but
kidding, will be more or less?
a little bit more.
A little more.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're looking to get some more.
But we want to make sure that people are comfortable. I'm 6'5", so I.
You don't sit in front of me.
I mean, the original seats were probably 18 inches wide in the 1920s.
Yeah.
They're much wider now.
Yes.
So when we can, we try to make them a little bit wider.
And an interesting fact is that when these theaters were built, women didn't typically go to the bathroom during intermission.
Yeah.
So now if you go to the theater, you'll see the lines.
Any other questions before we move to the members of the public? Is there anyone from the public? No? Okay, so we'll go to business session. How do people feel about this?
I mean, I think overall, they're really making quite a number of improvements to the theater. It's certainly, from their perspective, having that additional space is going to be phenomenal for them. And the fact that they will be able to relieve the congestion, by having access to the upper level, outside of the theater, I think it's really helpful. I mean, I think overall, the change to the booth is a big improvement. I guess that isn't that, it'll look pretty much the same, even though you're moving the doors out. And I can understand, why that would be an advantage. But I would say, other than that change, everything is really, going to make the theater look a lot brighter and certainly will be more functional. And for the ADA aspect, I think that's particularly helpful because it is very challenging in using theaters.
I think a lot of the changes they're making are to non-historic material, so that's a huge plus. They're good changes, but they're also to non-historic material. And a lot of stuff that makes these theaters so amazing, like the decorative plaster detail, whether it's up on the balconies or around the stage. I got the fancy word.
Proscenium.
That thing. They're bringing all of that back. And that's exactly what these theaters should be. So much of it gets covered up with equipment and whatnot, but I think the parts that are important, they're actually bringing back in a restorative nature, which is something we're certainly focusing on. And they did a beautiful job with Core. I mean, Schubert's always pay special attention to their theaters, so they're good stewards.
You like the Court?
Yeah.
It's one of our hottest theaters right now, and it wasn't. But now, since we have all these improvements, the producers want to go there.
Yeah, that's good. That's great.
Any other questions? Okay. I guess we'll vote. Just.
Let's make a motion.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the work.
Second.
Okay, just as a reminder, if anyone has any conflicts, just to disclose that I do, so I'm not gonna vote.
I know these guys, but, I don't have any conflicts, so
Okay.
I don't.
I am a yes.
You don't
John?
think you-
You
Yeah.
do?
Suzanne?
Yes, beautiful job.
Thank you. Michael?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Neil?
Yeah.
Karen?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Sachi?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Justine?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
passes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When are they starting this, do you know? Yeah, got it.
You're in New York, you know, we have to go through Euler,
Oh, yes, it's been a while, unfortunately.
but we're gonna get it done.
That place closing, that's the end now.
Yeah. Yeah, our next application tonight, our final one is from 915 Broadway, and that's an application for the installation of commercial kitchen exhaust flues on the south facing side of the building.
Blue.
That says flues, maybe it's flues. Not sure, we'll learn. All right, we can see you.
Hey, good evening. My name is Mike Rosani. I am with Michael Zenreich Architects. Everybody can hear good this time?
Yep. Thank
Good.
you.
So I'm representing the ownership of 915 Broadway, which is the corner building on 21st Street and Broadway, just south of Madison Square Park. We are working in collaboration with the owners of 913 Broadway, which is a two-story building immediately to the south. And this application has arisen due to smoke and odor that are coming from the new restaurant Masara that was opened at 913 Broadway at the former Punch Restaurant. And this is a new Italian restaurant that has two wood-burning pizza ovens. So they're getting a lot of exhaust going up into this courtyard between the taller buildings that surround it. So the two buildings have come together, and our clients 915 Broadway is a commercial office building, and a lot of their tenants complain daily about the odors coming from this restaurant, which is a much smaller building, and it vents directly on their roof. And there's also been several complaints to the FDNY and the Department of Buildings from the adjoining residential buildings for these same issues. So I'll go through quickly just the presentation, then we'll backtrack to the beginning. So we did some sightline studies throughout the entire neighborhood to see the visibility of where these flues would be visible from. And we have all these photographs documented that we'll come back to. These are some pictures of the existing roof and the exhausts of these kitchen exhaust from the restaurant, looking at that roof of 913 Broadway. And this is the proposed engineering plans, which I think this is an easier drawing to look at from the second floor roof. We're looking to installing a series of kitchen exhaust flues going up the face of 915 Broadway, and they would terminate at the top of a stair bulkhead. There's no equipment under this application. It's just the flues themselves, because all the equipment presently exists on that setback roof. So if we go back to our studies, we found that primarily there is a lot of visibility given this building from the south along Broadway. Once you get to 18th Street all the way up to 21st Street, you can see in these various progressing photos how these red lines are visible along that facade. And we'll zoom into a couple of these here. You can see the locations of where we're looking to install these flues along this facade. There's no windows in this bay right now. It's a solid brick bay, and we're intending on painting the flues the same color as the brickwork and mounting into the mortar joints. And there was some precedent in the past. If we go back to this slide here, you can see there was a flue that was installed. We couldn't find the exact timeline of when it was installed and when it was removed. This photograph was from the mid-1990s. So what we're looking at is installing a series of 5 of these flues along this facade, 3 of which would be immediately used by the restaurant at 913 Broadway, and 2 of the additional flues are future for a potential possible restaurant tenant that might take the ground floor space at 915 Broadway. We're just thinking in advance that if we're going through the expense of installing these flues, that we would like to do the additional ones for any future expansion at this time as well. So that's basically what we're proposing under this application. We can go closer and look at some of the photos if you want, or open to questions, but it's a pretty straightforward application.
Thank you. We may ask you to zoom in as we ask questions, but does anyone have any things from Dennis?
I'm like not familiar with what a flue is. Can you kind of explain like why the selection was made to use a flue versus like something else to treat like gas and smoke, like a precipitator, or like maybe something that's like less visible?
Well, right now, these are the exhausts coming out of the kitchen, and you can see they terminate just right above the roof line as per code. You know, there's nothing illegal in what they've done. But given, you can see if we go to some of these other slides, you know, the way this building is positioned here, you have this skinny building of 913 Broadway, and we have all these taller buildings around it. So with this 2-story building and all the exhausts going up, it just funnels right up into this kind of courtyard, and the odors just linger there. So the kitchen exhausts are pretty standard for restaurants. They're usually a black iron, steel lined kind of tube. They vary in sizes from 12 to 24 inches. We have multiple sizes that we're proposing here. But these basically are intended to take all the smoke and the odor and bring them up north, you know, above all the buildings, to eliminate any of the concerns with, you know, that we're having right now.
I guess like in the past, I've heard in different contexts, restaurants just having things like on-prem, like inside the structure versus on the outside. Was anything like that considered, or maybe that's just less applicable here?
Well, all kitchen hoods have to exhaust somehow to the outside of the building. None of them are recirculating. They all have to exhaust somehow. Sometimes buildings have internal shaftways that they can run these up in. Given that we have this building that is kind of landlocked, and you know, the way that 915 is configured, this was really the only location that something like this could be run. There is no other location because they're all covering other residential windows or commercial windows, and we happen to be fortunate to have this space on our building that was kind of void of all of those issues. And since we are the tallest building, you know, we have to run them up to the top of our building basically to terminate those flues. Another thing is, because they do have wood burning stoves for their pizza ovens, you know, that does create a lot of smoke. And it's been a real nuisance and a daily problem for owners of both buildings.
Super helpful, thank you.
I realize you said that your current setup is legal. Having said that, are there any legal actions involved with your decision? In other words, lawsuits, threat of lawsuits, court mandates, anything along those lines?
Not that I'm aware of, anything has gotten to that level. I'm only aware of the complaints that have been made to the fire department and to the Department of Buildings. The Department of Buildings did come out last month and did an inspection for a complaint, and they resolved it because they found that everything that is installed was filed and approved by the department. And technically it's all legal. It's just, this is one of those quality of life things that we're trying to improve, not only for the commercial tenants, but also for the residential tenants that are adjacent to this property.
What dictates the number of flues and the size of them? You said that there are 5 and there are different sizes.
Yes. So the 3 of which are dictated by the existing equipment for the restaurant that is in operation. So you can see if we blow up this mechanical plan that given the equipment that they have and what's required to be ventilated, I am not a mechanical engineer, so I can't speak to the technical side of those things. But the flues are direct relation to the CFMs and the output of the hoods in the restaurant. So for the restaurant, we're proposing a 16-inch, a 20-inch, and a 10-inch flue to handle their load. And we're looking to install a 20-inch and a 16-inch future flues for potential restaurants. And this was based on our engineers' expertise in doing restaurant design over the past 30 years. And they determined that these were the most practical sizes for a variety of different tenants that might take the space at 915 Broadway in the future.
So could you, when we look at the pictures, the red lines drawn up there, wow, visible. So would you explain, and you said that they're going to be painted the same color as the brick.
Correct.
And there's going to be 5 flues, 5 exhausts. Are they going to be 5 individual, or are they going to be in one covering thing that's going to be painted?
No, there'll be 5 individuals. They don't get ganged together. So there would be 5 individual, and these are actually drawn somewhat to scale, along here. And actually, that's just the 4 lines there, but there's 5 of them total. But they would be individual, yes. And they would basically, they attach a piece of steel Kindorf to the brick, and then these things get bolted onto that.
Did you explore any level of camouflage, whether it's a brick sheathing of some sort? Did you explore any other options so that they weren't as exposed as they were going to be?
There's really not anything you can put to cover a kitchen exhaust flue given the heat. Even when we install these adjacent to like fire escapes, we have to put a heat shield in front of them because they do get hot from all the heat coming out of the hood. So, the only thing we can really do is paint them to kind of blend in with the building. And they have special, heat resistant paint that they use on these types of things.
The elevation where you're proposing the 5 flues, is that a lot line? Can you go back to the site?
It is a
plan?
lot line, yes. And the owners of both buildings have entered into an easement agreement where technically the flues are installed on 913 Broadway's property. So they have an easement in place with 915 Broadway to attach to their building and terminate these flues at the top of their building.
So in the future, if someone were to develop that site, this would be in conflict?
Well, this would be a perpetuity easement on the building. And if for some reason the developer came in and purchased 913 Broadway and wanted to put a building up, it's not likely they'd be able to do a very tall building considering the width and, the sliver law. So they'd probably only be limited to a 6-story building. And this would be something that they would have to take into account during the purchase and the development of that building.
And I have a question. Can you quickly talk about the attachment to the current building, how the fluid would be installed?
I believe we have a detail of that. It was right here, actually.
Okay.
So this is basically the connection details.
And it's all gonna be painted out to match.
Correct.
You know, there's a building, 1350 Broadway, which is the building that faces, the square where Macy's is, what's that square called? Herald Square. And, there's two flues going up the side of that building. Can't miss them. They're big, and they're colored, aluminum color, you know, like the bright, you know the building I'm talking about? You
No.
see that from, and they're real thick, two giant thick things, and they really stick out. And I'm in that neighborhood, what, 60 years, and I'm used to them already. And these are gonna be less sticking out because they'll be color coded, color coordinated with the building. So I think as New Yorkers, I would vote to allow it, to approve it. You
Well, I think we're still in.
questions.
Yeah, we're still in questions, so.
Just
any other
a question.
Like you have one?
What's on the other side of the wall at 915 Broadway? Is that a stairway or
This at the roof elevation?
just the whole height? Just on the other side of the wall.
There's stairwells and elevators. So this top here is an elevator bulkhead.
Okay. It's not like a living space or
No, this
people-
is a strictly
places for
commercial
people.
building. 100% offices.
And it's not like offices like right behind the walls. Mostly.
No, that's where the
Okay.
elevator and stairs are for the building.
Okay, great.
Doesn't look like there's any more questions, so take it to the public. Is there anyone there? Okay. So to enter into business session. People in favor?
Make a motion.
I just,
Comment, sure?
yeah, go ahead.
Just make sure.
No, just before motion.
I just, I don't think there's really any alternative, honestly, you know, there's a problem, that they need to fix, and this is how you fix it, and, you know, if you look around, unfortunately, you see this all over the place, it's not pretty, but I personally don't know, you know, understand the complaints, on the part of the people living there. It is a side, it's not like they're putting it on the front of the building, it is the side of the building. It is very, very, very visible. Part of it is because it's, everything in front of it is so low. But I'm not sure if there's any alternative to this.
I have some concerns. I think it's highly visible. You can see it from Madison Square Park. You can see this from 5-6 blocks away. I have a real issue with that. And even though it's on a lot line elevation, it's such a prominent elevation. Typically in New York, an infill building has the side elevation that's quite plain, an ordinary brick. But here, the elevation is articulated and it's really special. And I think by adding not only the 3 flues, but 2 future flues and the space required between each of them, you're looking at greater than 11 foot wide. The precedent we saw was for 1 flue, that's probably like 12 or 20 inches. This is larger than 11 feet wide, going up the prominent, even though it's a side elevation, it's a prominent elevation in the district. And even though it may be painted, there's a lot of articulation of red brick and buff brick, and I don't think it's gonna mask it well enough that this would disappear, so.
Oh, I don't think it's gonna just,
You know, the other issue is, I missed the first minute or two, but if what they have is legal and it's just a inconvenience, I don't see that this is a real hardship. It's not a requirement. The building department approved the solution that's in, and honestly, maybe it shouldn't be a pizza oven. It can be, you know, a different use. And we do typically see kitchen exhaust and flues interior to the building. So it's not easy to do either, and it costs money, but you can find a shop in the building and have kitchen exhaust go up to the roof.
it's not their building, that's the problem.
Right, but Yeah, you can lease a tenant to a different retailer.
That's
If
the
there's
right-
no
that's
kitchen
right.
exhaust, that's proper. But I don't see it as a hardship.
Okay, and I think that's a good point, is that, we're a landmarks committee, we're not really here to comment on trying to solve a solution, which smelling food, I get it, maybe it's not ideal for some of the tenants. But I think also the fact that 915 is involved, it's a little odd, because they don't need to be. It's going to be incredibly visible, this is, it's a landmark building, and as Karen was saying, that's the first thing you notice when you look at the south facade, is all the decorative brick and the pattern that they have common here in this era buildings, a lot of the ring buildings have them. And that would be disrupted as well.
Points, I mean, it would be, it's certainly not desirable.
Yeah, the reason I asked the legal question is, when we first started taking a look at ADA, structures, I know there was a lot of pushback on them. And I know I was part of the team that was mandated to sort of figure out, to what degree, do we have to be concerned about the legal aspects? In other words, if something's gonna happen down the road because of a legal injunction or lawsuit or what have you, whether we like it or not, we're gonna have to go with ADA. Now, I mean, I was for ADA, but for those who weren't necessarily in favor of it, the persuasion point was that, from a legal standpoint, that was inevitable. So I guess I'm sort of just mentioning, they said that there were no legal issues here, but yet at the same time, they were saying that government agencies have come out to look at the situation, that people are complaining. That sounds to me like the potential lawsuit down the road that could result in these foods being built anyway. So that's just something to consider. Having said that, I was curious, I know these are comments, but I need to make this a comment instead of a question. I'd like for Karen to comment on, on the alternative. And how that would work, recognizing that they don't own the building, but I know nothing about this at all, so I'd love to, understand what that would involve.
Yeah, so the question's to me, but I'll let Karen answer.
Yeah, not an engineer and not familiar with the core and the mechanics of this particular building, I can't really say, but I know in other buildings, kitchen exhausts are commonly an interior shaft that exits, the exhaust to the roof. They're not appendages on the side of the building on someone else's property. This is-
Internally.
Oh, yeah, internally, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it would, I mean, if this were built within the taller building, or they might even have a shaft that they could exhaust into. But unfortunately, this is the shorter building. I'm wondering if we can do a deny less and just deny the two additional ones. But I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that you're right. I'm sort of waffling between sort of understanding the hardship as well, and I have a feeling that it's going to get done, and so if we could deny the two additional ones that we don't know are actually even necessary.
Well, before we get to that, how do people feel about, let's say, those even three other flues? Are people okay with them?
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
So the three flues, so there's five in total,
Yeah.
two for prospective use, but three for the current tenant. Is everyone okay with the flues?
Don't love it, but.
Not really.
No.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I'll vote with the group. I mean, I don't feel strongly about, saying they should have it, so.
So, I mean, we have already restricted the fact that this building is small because of landmarks. And so therefore, we're penalizing the building even further by trying to make an accommodation to conform to our landmarks, right? And so I don't, like, I guess the solution based upon some of the conversation here is we should just build a bigger building here, but we can't do that. So this seems like the right solution to the problem. I don't think the solution to the problem should be, there should be a different business there. That doesn't strike me as a constructive way forward in this conversation. So I would be supportive in having the flutes as a constructive solution to this problem.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm in favor of approving this. I think about comparing this to the windows at the very beginning of this meeting. And this is a very different situation. Just looking at the photograph, I'm on slide 3. It's just a very commercial area. And you have to like really be looking. I mean, first of all, it doesn't even start your sight line until the 4th or 5th floor up. Even if you're looking right for it, yeah, it's a very narrow spot. I mean, I get it. I get the concern. It's you'd rather not have. If you had a choice between all positives and equals, you'd rather not have it than have it. But it doesn't. I mean, looking just at all the other stuff in this photograph, it doesn't really strike me as aesthetically damaging to the area. So I'm in favor of letting him do it.
But Kevin, that is our choice, isn't it, to have it or to not have it?
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, it's a judgment call. I mean, I don't see them putting flues there interrupting the fabric of what I see in that photograph.
What I'm sort of thinking about is that apparently this is not required. Our current setup is legal. So this is something that they want to do. It's not really necessary legally. And maybe there is some sort of other alternative, which is better. And just from a landmarks perspective, it's not really something that, like if this was just some other random addition to the building that was not necessitated in any way, I probably wouldn't be in favor of it. So that's just one of the things that I'm thinking about.
So why are they doing it then?
I mean, it's gonna facilitate their business. It's like helping them as a tenant. It's not necessary.
I think it's what John said earlier.
They may get, there's complaints about it, but it's legal. So I guess they're just concerned about like.
It's legal. So
getting more
far.
complaints.
A lawsuit down the road.
So,
Yeah.
Mark, can I say something? You're missing, the problem is with 913. The applicant is not 913 Broadway. The applicant is 915 Broadway, and let's be honest, 915 Broadway is planning for the future of their own retail spaces. That's why they're here. 913 doesn't really care, right? They're legal, everything's completely within an acceptable territory. 915 is here because they ultimately want to have restaurants in their retail spaces. There's no real problem here. So from a landmark's point of view, does this detract from the landmark period?
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying, I agree.
Yeah.
Tony's point, I think it's very good thing to point out, and there are better ways to do this that are gonna be more expensive. And if the owner of the bigger building was gonna be benefiting from this more than the owner of the little building, that's some fairly substantial rents and have a substantial building, they could do it speaking as an architect, we can do this much more nicely.
I'm super confused by what's going on right now. So the smaller building has a pizza tenant that has smoke that's coming up and it's disturbing the residents in that taller building. And
The occupants, it's commercial, it's not residential.
the commercial residents. And so then the pizza tenant downstairs, the owner of the pizza building is here to propose these foods. And they're not required to do that.
No.
The taller building.
Taller building, which I didn't
And
quite.
they're doing, because they don't want their tenants to have this smoke.
No,
But
because they
they
want to
want
be able to have
have-
a food service in their building.
And in
Which is
addition to
great.
that,
We love more food.
So the
service.
office tenant wants
But
to
they could-
eventually lease the spaces to other food retailers
Yeah.
in their building.
Which is
next
lovely,
door.
and we all like.
In the
more
tall
food
building.
spaces, but they could afford to do it more nicely. They don't have to
Yes.
junk up the neighborhood.
You're right.
So, okay, so the taller building is the one that's asking for this provision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
And they're sort of
So just-
using this other pizzeria business as like an excuse to.
Okay, in that sense, I voted
Yeah, and you know,
Just saying, Mike, who presented, said in the chat that we have filed applications for both buildings with both owners. To me, I, think that it's a good thing that both, the tenants and the owners of both buildings have some complaints. And it's a positive that even though it's not legally required, they are taking the step to resolve these complaints, to make life more pleasant for the people that use these buildings, to make life more pleasant for people that are walking around on the streets. I was walking by the site, there's a children's clothing store right next door. We don't want, when possible, exhaust from pizza ovens sort of hanging out on a second floor. So I think it's a positive that the buildings are working together to try to resolve the complaint. If we don't think that the additional flue should be added in for 915 because it's not needed right now, I would say, I'm not sure about, I could go either way on that, but I don't think it's just, I don't think the complaints are made up. I think it is solving a real problem. And the fact that they're not legally required to do so, we should encourage people to solve problems, even if they're not legally required to do so.
So this is just like a hypothetical question, but if we say today, from a landmarks perspective, we don't approve this, and down the road, as a result of litigation, they have to implement this, like, can we revisit it at that time, or will they kind of do it anyway? Is there like a possibility to decouple our stance from a landmark perspective with whatever becomes inevitable?
So I'm not sure if they're required by law, they wouldn't need to come to
I don't
us,
think they
right?
come to landmarks, but keep in mind, there are no legal issues. And so unless the code changes, and our architects can comment a little more on that, unless code changes.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, if like DOB or whoever approved it.
Complaints them.
Yeah.
But if you
It's
don't-
311.
But they'd be grandfathered anyhow,
Sure.
even if it's
Yeah.
been approved, they don't go around to the city and make everybody, do these things. But I think Peter's point was really well taken. They could do this, it would just require a lot more money, but they could do it in a much nicer fashion. And so I would say, hearing that and some of the other arguments, I've gone from being wishy-washy to also agreeing that.
Just a clarifying question, what would be the preferred way to do it? Given that in the shorter building, they can't go up that much further. So it's the idea that in 915, they would build something like an internal shaft that goes to the roof.
It could be shielded as one more discrete thing rather than 5.
And bus through the elevator shaft, right?
And 913 still can't do anything like that, though.
Relatively simple.
So it's still
Small building can't, but they-
But it would be.
Right, small building can't do that.
Yeah, because it's on the building, the big building,
Anyway, we can-
but it's the big building that's the applicant.
I would love to
I
hear
thought it's
what
a
the
dual
applicant.
I thought it's dual application.
I would love to hear what the applicant would say about the feasibility of those alternatives, because
We
my
just
book
have
may
to-
turn on that.
We just have
Because
to.
But this is the big issue, this is the big thing. He's saying it's simple, it's easy.
It's gonna cost more money.
But I don't, what do you mean, like 2% more, 1,000% more?
No, they just have to
I
cut
no
into
idea.
the building.
Well,
The landmark building.
again, it's not our.
That's why I
Make a
just.
comment question about that.
Wait,
So like this proposed alternative that hypothetically could be done would either cover up more of the facade of a landmark building or cut into and otherwise interfere with a landmark building, where here we're saying something that has been put on and taken off in history because they have these pictures. We don't want them to put on because it's practical for what the current use of the space is.
It can be shielded in spite of.
But like, we would be covering, hypothetically, that would be covering 11, 12 feet wide by whatever dimension out of the landmark facade, which is more of the material that we're concerned about covering than what we would be doing
But more
with this.
discreetly and more neatly.
Right.
But
What
so it
what
wouldn't be
they're
like-
proposing is a very industrial sheet metal
I mean, I know,
strap. It
like,
could be
a
an
lot of other people, I
architect,
know what a flue is,
it
but
could
like,
be architectural metal that is the nicer material, nicer design, you're not seeing mechanical fasteners.
Or maybe some.
I
of
also
it
wonder
could
if
be
there's not
rough.
another route up the building, they're centering it in the
Okay,
blank panel.
Lieutenant, just everybody direct their comments to Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just don't want to be infighting.
Yeah,
If we're speculating on solutions, why they chose this location, why couldn't they be located further deep, much deeper into the court? That's less visible from, if you look at the sightlines, they're proposing smack in the middle of the blank, there's two columns of windows, a wide span of brick, and then another 4 rows of windows. Why not push these flues to the rear of the building?
And that building on the corner is one of the great buildings.
So that would make it less visible, and I think you could upgrade an architectural material.
Wasn't it, so there was this, the flues were there in
In the nineties.
in
At some point
in the nineties.
Yeah.
And so this was legal, and isn't most of the stuff that we do precedent, if something was legal beforehand, it's legal now today?
So can I comment on that?
Yeah.
So using this applicant's application that we've seen before, there's a historical photo in there that still has that flue in the photo. So most likely it was up for the 1989, I think, Ladies Mile Historic designation. So it was existing when it was landmarked. Wow. Most likely.
So then if it's existing, why can't it still continue to
They're
be?
stuck with it. If it's existing, it's there. You know,
No, it
the
was-
building gets like,
But no,
no, that's what I'm saying. It used to be there at the time of landmark designation.
So then it should be
was
back.
present. But it was non-historic. It was non-original.
I'm,
That's
well,
not a debate.
I
I know, but we don't wanna fight.
Sure, I'm confused. So if there was precedent, right, and this was historically on the building, technically, it should be on the building and there should not have been removed.
It was not really a historic thing when it was there.
But it
There's a
was,
lot of like stuff that's added to buildings at times that's not really supposed to be added.
but
So
wait, when was Ladies Mile Historic District put into place?
89.
I think
I think it was 89.
89.
Is 89, and we saw pictures before 1989 with this here, correct?
Which, in 1990s, which makes sense that it would be okay being non-original because it's existing at the time of designation. Doesn't matter.
Correct, so therefore, we should have latitude to let them do this. It's just,
Can I make a comment to that? Then if by using your argument, then you would only let them put back one flue.
great, let's put them like one for that.
Well, that doesn't work for them.
But referencing back to the 23rd Street buildings, where there are things on the building that they want to take off that were added to the building, we said, oh, great, those things are coming off, even though those things were there during designation, but they weren't original to the building. So,
Right.
but taking them off improves the building, it's a subjective issue, and is this building, and is this corridor of Broadway better off with that chimney or without that chimney? You can't
I mean, if there's a
possibly-
restaurant that's successful downstairs, I think it's better off with the chimney.
That
I,
doesn't have anything to do with the landmark.
Yeah.
Landmark issue.
Yeah, that's not the
I
landmark
mean,
issue.
that's a different, that's a
I'll
different.
just take a few more comments and then we'll hopefully we can get a motion on.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I do think this will end up coming down to how folks feel about the use. And I think we'd all say, oh, we all kind of wish that the facade would not have stuff on it. And you have to make a judgment call as a resident, as somebody who, appreciates the facade of this really gorgeous building, who is thinking about the occupants, the neighbors, our own quality of air all the time, which is disgusting. But, does it weigh out for you individually? And some people will come down one side and some people will come down another.
I think just to sum up kind of what we would potentially be saying, not everybody, but what we could be saying is not, no, nobody's allowed to have exhaust, whether it's the neighboring building or I'm an owner and I want to have future, availability for new tenants. If we were to deny this, we're only saying do it better. That's the only thing we're saying. We're not saying nothing's allowed. To Karen's point, by the way, the restaurant's it opens at 5 o'clock. It's not open all day. To Karen's point, this lower building where the restaurant is goes all the way back to the corner of 915, deep into the block. There are plenty of other places to put that stack where it would not work, or 10 stacks, whatever they want, that would not be visible. So if we deny this, we're not saying no, period, anything. We're just saying do it better. That's all we're saying.
Okay.
So it could be made like curved, you're saying?
We have to leave it to them. Let's not decide it for
Time for a motion.
Yeah, does
Yes,
someone want to
Yeah,
make a
and
motion?
and just do feel like five is excessive.
Okay, so what's the motion?
Five is great.
Motion to deny.
To deny.
Then motion
Absolute
and a second.
denial. Okay, so
Second.
0. Okay,
Was there a second?
yeah,
Let's hear the
Yes.
motion was, let's hear.
To deny.
To deny.
Deny.
absolute denial.
So,
Zero foods.
again, a yes means deny. I'm gonna say no. John?
Come back.
Okay. Mark?
I'm gonna say yes.
What?
Yes,
Yes, meaning to deny.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Michael?
No.
Milan?
No.
Neil?
Just making sure this is a motion to deny completely.
Yes.
To 0.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then I vote no.
Karen?
Yes.
David? No. Barbara?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Sachi?
No.
Tony?
Yes.
Justine?
No.
Zoe?
Yes.
John?
No.
Why we got a housing crisis? Think about this.
Where's the Grover Land?
And then it doesn't pass me again.
Yeah.
Let's.
Yeah.
Wait till it's out. Wait till it's out.
It's
Tied, really?
No way.
Cool.
This is ridiculous. Two more architects, so you say no.
7 to 7. So that motion is tied. There was a tie, so.
Goes up to them. Landmark.
It's a tie.
Is there? Can we do like a denial unless? Did that get everyone?
Can I do a motion to approve?
Oh, it would be the, because we
Is anybody like really on the fence or clearly?
Can I-
everyone-
I tell a quick story
No.
about this kind of thing.
Neil also
If
has
it's
a-
really quick.
Real quick, my son used to live on Second Avenue, right opposite the chimney that vacant from Pum Fritz. Remember that restaurant that used to sell the French fries?
Yeah.
And this came right into his apartment. So I told him, call the EPA. He calls the EPA. Now, he could have sued them. There could have been all kinds, but the EPA came up and they presented a solution. We'll give you, if they give you an air conditioner, will you be happy to? And that worked out. But there could have been a suit on this, and there could be a suit on these things as well.
Yeah.
So I predict a suit if the smoke.
Could we do, as a compromise, could we do a deny unless they move it to the far rear of the building, the corner? Remember, this is a deep, deep building that juts to the south in the interior of the block.
That wouldn't change my vote personally.
That changed everyone?
No.
I mean, I could vote.
Can we,
It's a lot, they do it, as many as they want, whatever.
So,
That has to
Can
be
we-
a kind of, then.
would anyone change if it's
Sorry.
deny unless?
Because you abstained last time because you had a conflict and Morris was absent, I miscounted how many people we had voting. So the no's actually won by 8 to 7.
oh, we need a motion that passes.
Right. So
So
now we can just flip it.
Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Since we had our
Yeah,
vote?
we can do that.
Wait.
We just
are
can't do tie.
But I'm curious if the denial unless will make the vote a little more.
Well, if we do not,
So it would be a denial unless we move the
Or-
location.
I would also say it, I would also offer differently a deny unless. It's just the 3 that are needed now and then the 2 in the future. So it would be deny unless they remove the 2 that aren't needed now.
The difference that makes,
Yeah.
it's probably not gonna happen,
What do you mean?
because those other two are probably for the.
Yes,
paying
right.
for it all. Yeah,
I agree.
so I'd go with that.
Yeah, me too.
I agree with
Okay.
Peter.
Fine.
Question, Kevin, I think we're 14. Is there actually
Yeah,
15 voting?
15, yeah, sorry.
But who's the 15th?
Cause we're 13 in the room plus
it's,
Neil's 14.
That's Neil.
Neil Bodas.
Neil online.
11, 12.
And Neil.
Oh, Neil makes,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, I just got it. Okay.
Or,
we're
we
13.
had 14 for the last vote because he abstained because he had a conflict,
Yeah.
but now he's back.
So what's the motion that we're gonna vote on now?
The nine unless the stacks are moved to the, I guess we have to call it specific corner, to the east facing interior facade of the building. And they're limited to three?
The three that are
So three
required.
required.
And you're right, they're gonna say that. Because they're paying for it and they want it to.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay.
So it's a deny unless,
Movement and three.
I would say yes. John?
This is denied, so.
It's a denial unless.
They're gonna be
Denial
against
unless.
that, but then they're gonna want to do it.
We don't know.
You don't know for
I don't
sure.
know for sure, but
We're increasing their costs and decreasing their.
Deny unless
benefits.
they move it and reduce it from 5.
Which I know I'm gonna vote, but I didn't understand why we didn't get their input. So we would have more information if we had talked.
Yeah.
Ask them to speak to this issue.
He's still there.
For this vote.
We don't.
Because if he's gonna say no, then what's the whole point of the denial right?
Well, we're just deciding upon the application that's before us.
No, I understand that, but they say that's a deal breaker, I'm not gonna do that.
Just remember that whatever we say has to be.
Well, they can decide whether or not
landmark.
to act on.
Right.
They make the rule and we just.
Like, we're not requiring them.
Come back.
Right. Ours is just advising the
I
landmark
understand,
LPC.
we just come back to them.
Okay. Mark,
I'll say yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
yes. Michael,
Yes.
Lola,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Dave,
No.
Barbara,
Yes.
Peter,
yes.
Sachi,
No.
Tony,
Yes.
Justine.
No.
So,
Yes.
passes.
Well, you haven't asked me.
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Yeah.
Still passes.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Every single thing we do here costs more money for more folks. It takes money away from lowered housing prices, lower office prices. And so all of these like little minutia, it's insane. It's totally insane.
Remember, we're a landmark.
Yes, I know.
We're not focused on housing, it's not a committee of yes.
You guys approved a 10-story
Okay,
addition to a
continue. Let's turn off the web.
Yeah.
Really good, 15.